What's yours is yours. What's yours is yours, you know.
Like water.
This world treat you like what's yours is yours, you know. This world's a war you fighting for. We using fist sticks, nice guns, and swords. Try to take what's mine, I'll take what's yours. Try to take what's mine, I'll take what's yours. They wanna kill me, they only wanna do me filthy. So much fear in me, I can see what it will be. I'm sweating, knees weak, and moms forget to pull out. I'm reflecting at the same time, should took the good route. But how many those in their lifetime meeting like mine? But the system have you played out the way it's designed. You can't reform something you can't redefine. This the world's culture. Kill them slow and eat them like vultures. And when you born, you ate what they told you. Ask myself, is this my fate? Making mistakes, these the breaks. Raise the stakes, might as well retrace the traits and take your place. Cause you've been living in a time loop, which you can't escape. What right is left and down is up. The ground erupts, the mountain get crushed. The air has dust, the fumes is lost. The town is tough, but doesn't mean the town ain't rough. What's yours is yours. What's yours is yours, you know. This world treat you like what's yours is yours, you know. This world's a war you fighting for. We using fist sticks, nice guns, and swords. Try to take what's mine, I'll take what's yours. Try to take what's mine, I'll take what's yours. How you try to buy Jordans when you know it's a war? Then you go and buy a gun, we don't know what it's for. We'll learn together, heal my brother, take turns together. No beef, no vendetta. But remember, this is for protection. The one before us left many lessons. Ritual so you could balance blessings. Lost soul, gotta clean your essence. You be wildin' like you can't be tested. Gotta study so you could get these questions. Gotta pray so you could release tension. Cause I know when your heart is vengeance and the anger running like an engine. Gotta reconnect with all some senses. Need a I have to mention. And that rap shit, I just be venting. About the nights we was hopping fences. Catching chicks and sleeping on park benches. Mama working just for a pension. Why does life feeling like a sentence? That's the reason I be so relentless. What's yours is yours. What's yours is yours, you know.
Like water.
This world treat you like what's yours is yours, you know. This world's a war you fighting for. We using fist sticks, nice guns, and swords. Try to take what's mine, I'll take what's yours. Try to take what's mine, I'll take what's yours. I was always trying to reach it, reach it, reach it, to the motherfucking stars. Reach it, reach it. I was trying to go hard. Reach it, reach it. I was always trying to reach it, reach it, reach it, reach it, reach it. I was always trying to reach places we ain't approached yet. Even though that we was broke doesn't mean we was hopeless. When we had no toaster strudels, we was eating hostess. Say I'm grateful for them days, got me going through emotions. Grandma always had them prayers, yeah, to hold us down. Every time I messed up, her tough love, it came around. I played the crib to let you know that I was safe and sound. And even though I start no shit, no, I ain't play around. Yeah, cause in this life, nobody chosen. You gotta get it like you got it going. You gotta hit it, then keep it rolling. Even in the morning when the crow's crowing. Even when the sun's folding. Anytime you can seize that moment, gotta let it out. What you be holding, that's what happens when you preach your soul. Is trying to reach it, reach it, reach it, to the motherfucking stars. Reach it, reach it. I was trying to go hard. Reach it, reach it. I was always trying to reach it, reach it, reach it, reach it, reach it. As a youngin', I tiptoed to reach the top of the shelf. I asked for help, but then I did it all by myself. I put the pen to the paper till my fingers would melt. And then I tapped it into being called knowledge itself. That's the type of trap I be in when I get to the wealth. I play my cards, but I can never show the hands I was dealt. I live my life where it will test you right out for real. And if you're not in that field, you cannot own no skills. Where your own insecurities could get you killed. I got 9 problems, but being the best ain't one. Gotta discipline yourself, manifest and become. My spirit bomb has the power 1/5 of the sun. Don't have the God spin your block and show you how it's done. Cause I was always trying to preach it.
Welcome to H.O.L.La's 4th webinar, everyone. This is Healing Between Generations, intersections, grand rising, always, any time of the day. I am so excited, so highly honored. So how our lives linked together. H.O.L.L.A is presenting a 5-part webinar series via Zoom so that we can share widely with multiple communities across different geographical spaces the analysis and the roots of the non-traditional approach to criminal and social justice and healing justice. This is about healing justice. We bring forth the spirit of our ancestors, a womb, and we as the elders, the women, the youth, everyone from our neighborhoods, those most impacted by the criminal punish system, those grassroots community-based organizers, those, leaders, everyone in the community to join us. This webinars really will allow us to create spaces to continue the political development and establish these conversations to generate community-specific approaches to wellness and liberation. We want just to engage and to really heal. So we hope to see and feel the vibration of all and everyone in our communities, those community warriors, college students, researchers, family members, African and indigenous relatives. So we would love for our queer, our trans, everyone that represent us to come and join us for this important conversation and engage with the webinar series. So please come with all the positive energy and let's just build. And I will pass it to George Galvis.
Right on, thank you, Bibi. I say, how matakiape, haniwashte. Hello, my relatives. It's a good day. Humbled and honored to be here with each and every one of you. You know, I'm ready like Freddie. I'm rocking my decolonized hat, my not today colonizer shirt. You know what I'm saying? Because this is about, centering the voices and lifting up the beautiful, powerful, sacred work of our relatives of African descent, doing this powerful healing justice movement building, but moderated in solidarity and with love from our indigenous people, myself representing the Quechua Nation, my sister Bibi, Taino, Boricua. And so, in solidarity and love with our H.O.L.L.A family, how our lives link all together. And what an appropriate name, because in our indigenous expression, our earliest concepts, the concept of interconnectedness and interdependence, we say how Mitakiasen. Mitakiasen means all my relations in the Lakota language. In the Mayan expression, they say in Lakesh, which says you are my other self. So that concept of how our lives link all together is lifting up that very original concept of how we are all interconnected and interdependent. And so that's a sacred concept that in 1492 came into clash with the concept of greed, gold, and genocide, manifesting itself today with the concept of the capitalist mantra of maximize profits, minimize expenditures, where we value money before we value people. And this healing journey is very much about rerouting ourselves to those ancestral traditions. That's about decolonizing. That's about indigenizing. That's about relearning and returning to those indigenous teachings. And so I'm going to invite you all to acknowledge the traditional homelands wherever you are. I know our relatives in New York City representing Lenape Nation out there, occupied unceded territory, stolen land. And I'm coming straight out of Muwekma Ohlone, stolen territory, unceded land, otherwise known as East Oakland, California. Invite you all, if you're not in New York, if you're not in the Bay, to take some time to research and know whose traditional homelands that you're occupying, and invite those spirits to support you in your journey for liberation as well. We want to acknowledge all those ancestors who have fought, bled, wept, died, struggled so that we could be here today. And so I'm going to begin with the 4 directions acknowledgement in the way that I was taught by my elders. And for us, the 4 directions, those 4 sacred cardinal directions, they mean something. And we begin with the north. The direction of the north represents the elders. That's recognizing all those that we just acknowledged, those people who have fought, bled, wept, struggled. But it also represents wisdom. Wisdom, because those are those who have lived and they've generated knowledge. They've gathered knowledge, and there's benefit from that experience. And so they say that a smart person learns from the mistakes of other people, but a wise person learns from watching and listening to others, those who lived before us, longer than us. And so we want to honor all those elders. And we're going to move to the south, to the direction of the children. And the children, we believe every young person is a blessing, that every young person has a sacred purpose. That's where dreams come from. That's where vision comes from. That's where hope comes from. That's what drives our movements. So I want to invite you all to acknowledge the children in your life. Think about them. If you feel compelled, say their names out loud. Give it breath, give it life, give it energy. And we're going to move to the direction of the West. That's the direction of the women, the sacred life givers. As men will never ever know the pain of labor that women go through to give life. And we want to acknowledge that beautiful, nurturing, loving energy that they bring as the caretakers of our families and of our nations, the heart of the people. And we'll move to the direction of the East. That's the male masculine energy. And I know many of us have talked about and have challenged and deconstructed what we now refer to as toxic masculinity. So I want to invite you to actually create a vision of what sacred masculinity looks like. Nurturing, protecting, love. And think about the men and the male identified relatives in your family, that masculine energy that embody that, and say their names if you feel compelled. Give it breath, give it life. And right between those two doors of the male energy and the female energy, we have what we call our two-spirit relatives. That's gender non-conforming, trans, LGBT is kind of Western terminology that people use. But in our traditional indigenous ways, we acknowledge that they're the gatekeepers where those two energies meet. And what a sacred and beautiful place there is. And there's ceremonies that they lead as those gatekeepers. And let's acknowledge all our two-spirit relatives in a good way like that too. Then that direction above, creation, the star nation, the direction below, the grandmother, and that seventh direction is that direction that connects us all. And how our lives all link all together. You know what I'm saying? So, H.O.L.L.A. And I want to pass it on to Brother Lumumba Akinwole Mandela, who's a father, husband, organizer, educator based in central Brooklyn. Brother Lumumba is also a priest of Obatala in the Yoruba tradition, and he's going to bring in the African tradition and ceremony of libation. Brother Lumumba.
Peace, everybody. Good to be with you. See if I can. Okay, I can't start my video. Okay, I will go by audio. I hope you all are well. I thank you all for inviting me to participate in this gathering. And so I am going to do what's called libation. For those of you who do not know, libation is one of the oldest traditions of indigenous and African people across the globe. This particular tradition is one that acknowledges the reality that we stand on the shoulders of those that have come before us, that none of us would just drop here out of the clear blue sky, that not only does our physical presence acknowledge that we are here because of other people, but our work, the progress that we've made as people, the struggles that we have made, it's because of those that have come before us. So I'm going to do libation in the tradition of the Yoruba people of Nigeria, West Africa, and for those of us who are in the diaspora, some of us may know this particular tradition as Santeria, as Lukumi. It goes by different names depending on where you are. And so for those who are familiar with this, I'm going to ask that you, when I get to the point of saying names and asking you to say the names of your ancestors, that I will say Ashe, which is Yoruba for make it so, let it be, is to put the blessings of the Almighty on the words that we speak. Okay, so I will start. Omitutu, ana tutu, tutu le, tutu ego, mojuba, mojuba lofi, mojuba lo demare, mojuba lo wo. Kenke mashori sae, kenke mashe oyani ni. Bye bye tunu, ibaye omitoki, ibaye adeshela, ibaye adeleti, ibaye bobo ego. Ago ego. And Egun is the Yoruba word for ancestors, for spirit. Egun, we come before you today to give thanks for your blessings. We ask for your continued blessings, specifically ask that you and the Almighty guide the thoughts, behaviors, and presence of those that are participating in this gathering. We ask that you make this gathering successful. We ask that we leave this gathering more intelligent, more committed, more creative than we started. We pray in the names of ancestors who have gone before us. We call on the names of the many indigenous spirits that occupy the spaces we are currently in. We call on the names of the freedom fighters, thinkers, organizers, and teachers, including El-Hajj Malik El-Shabazz, we say Ashe, George Jackson, Ashe, Abdul Majid, Ashe, Herman Ferguson, Ashe, Safia Bukhari, Ashe, Nahanda Abiodun, Ashe, Janet Cyril, Ashe, Kwesi Balagoon, Ashe. I'm going to ask you to call on names of people who have influenced your life that are passed away, that are deceased, people that have gone on in transition. I'm going to ask you to come off mute and say their names, and we will say Ashe.
Agustina Guzman.
Ashe.
Mika Davis.
Ashe.
Markella Edward.
Ashe.
Ricky A.R.
Ashe.
Lolita Lebron.
Ashe. Ashe. For all of those freedom fighters and thinkers who have influenced our work, we say Ashe. I call on you now to say the names of your bloodline, your actual relatives who have transitioned, because were it not for them, we would not even be here to know the names of the freedom fighters and thinkers who have influenced our lives. So we call on you to raise the names of your bloodline, your great-grandparents, your grandparents, your parents, other people in your bloodline that have passed away.
Albert Bird.
Ashe.
Ramosa Vernon.
Ashe.
Tata.
Ashe.
John.
Ashe.
Gary Stringfield.
Ashe. Ashe.
Mary Jane General.
Ashe. Ashe. So for all of those Eguns, both named and unnamed, we give thanks. We ask again for your continued blessings. And we ask that you continue to guide and protect us, to keep us strong and healthy, mentally, physically, and spiritually. We ask that your presence allow for victory to be certain. Ashe, Ashe, Ashe. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brother Lumumba.
Thank you, Lumumba, and I want to thank everyone for joining us as we engage in conversation with some phenomenal wisdom warriors, thinkers, artists, and badass liberation renegades, which I will introduce shortly. Highly honored. It's a pleasure to build, learn, and deconstruct with such a magnificent team. Abundant gratitude to H.O.L.L.A. You folks have always given a space that feels so much like home. So it is essential that we recognize our sacredness despite our wounds, the struggles, and that we pay homage and fully recognize the seeds of wisdom that others have imparted. Understanding really from within that the life force and the worthiness and like George said, that we are all interconnected to everything, including those that came before us. Thank you, Lumumba. Thank you, George. And we are going to be introducing our phenomenal panelists. And first is Sekuo Odinga, elder of the Black Panther Party and Black Liberation Army. From Jamaica, Queens. Sekuo Odinga grew up in Jamaica, Queens, New York, in a family of 9. He is a husband, father, grandfather, and great-grandfather. He is a Muslim and a citizen of the Republic of New Africa. In his youth, Sekuo was inspired to join the Black freedom struggle by the revolutionary politics and principles of Malcolm X. He joined the Organization of Afro-American Unity shortly after Malcolm's assassination, followed by the Jamaica Grassroots Advisory Council, the Black Panther Party for Self-Defense, and ultimately the Black Liberation Army. In April of 1969, Sekuo escaped an early morning raid and arrest of the Harlem Bronx leadership of the BPP in the case that came to be known as the New York Panther 21. Charged with conspiracy to blow up the Bronx Botanical Gardens, department stores, police prisons, and other public sites. It was the longest and most expensive trial in the New York history. It took 2 years, but in an hour, the jury returned with a not guilty verdict of all charges. For each of the defendants, Sekuo was absent. He was not there. Sekuo was forced underground and sent to Algeria to set up the international section of the BPP in the mid-70s. U.S. Imperialism had begun placing demands on the Algerian government that made it difficult for the Black Panther Party to continue its revolutionary work abroad. Sekuo returned to the States to rejoin the Black liberation movement struggle for freedom, land, and independence. In October of 1881, in Nyack, New York, a Brinks armored truck was expropriated, leaving a guard and 2 policemen killed. Members of the Black Liberation Army and Weather Underground were arrested at the scene with a full-scale hunt launch for others. 3 days later, Sekuo was captured. His comrade, Matayari Shabaka Sundiara, was murdered while lying face down on the ground. Taken into custody, Sekuo was beaten and tortured for 6 hours by local and federal law enforcement who altered between waterboarding, extinguishing cigarettes into his flesh, being held out a window and threatened to be thrown out of the window in their attempts to extract the whereabouts of Asada Shakur by then she was living in exile in Cuba. For 33 years, Sekuo was a political prisoner of war, criminalized for his alleged participation in the Black liberation movement. He spent 28 of those years in federal prisons across this country. And in 2009, after maxing out of his federal sentence, he was paroled to New York to begin serving his sentence. 5 years later, a legal victory resulted in his time served being converted to run concurrently, making him eligible to appear before the parole board 19 years before his scheduled 2033 date. On November 25th, 2014, Sekuo Odinga walked out of the New York State Clinton Correctional Facility into a caravan of family and friends that included his wife, his children, grandchildren, and an extended community. My regards to Dekwisioni Sadiki, beautiful wife of Sekuo. And since his release from prison, Sekuo has continued to build awareness of and advocate for the release of prisoners of war. He has been interviewed extensively in print and radio. In 2011, he married the Kwikioni Sadiki, an activist working on behalf of and with the 14 members of the Black Panther Party and Black Liberation Army who remain behind the wall with the Jericho movement for amnesty and reckoning U.S.-held POWs. And they live in Brooklyn, New York. What an honor.
Right on. I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to introduce panelists 2 and 3 just to give Sister Bibi an opportunity to catch her breath because, you know,
such a long journey.
Yeah, Baba Sekuo got a beautiful long journey. He's a lot of sacrifice, a lot of the things we were honoring earlier, and so we wanted to make sure to acknowledge all those things. So Kumi Owusu, very short and sweet, is a writer and community member. That's our second panelist. And panelist 3 is Alex Toro Davis, General, Healing Justice Organizer at H.O.L.L.A in Brooklyn, New York. Alex's family migrated from Grenada, Honduras, and South Mississippi. The legacy Alex stands on comes from ancestral wisdom, the people's movements that come before him, the women who have unconditionally cared for them, and the struggle. Alex is a healing justice organizer with H.O.L.L.A How Our Lives Link All Together, which is a grassroots organization that stands on the legacy of other grassroots movements. Alex is also an MC who goes by Autoro, an artist that uses their gifts to express the continuous harm and the healing needed in Black and brown communities.
And I will introduce you, George, so that folks know who you are. So, George, a moderator for the past 25 years. George Galvis has been a national leader in the movement to abolish youth prisons, create police accountability, and radically transform the American mass incarceration system. George is deeply tied to his indigenous roots and grounds his work in healing practices which draw upon those traditions. Galvis is the co-founder and the current executive director of Communities United for Restorative Youth Justice, Courage, which elevates the power of young people most affected by the criminalization and violence. George holds both a Bachelor's of Arts in Ethnic Studies and a Master's in City Planning from UC Berkeley, where he was a Ronald E. McNair Scholar and Public Policy and International Affairs Fellow. He has conducted and published extensive research on alternatives to gang violence, utilizing culturally and spiritually based approaches. Born and raised in the Bay Area, shout out to the Bay Area, Galvis was exposed to profound domestic violence and drug abuse at a young age. George experienced racial targeting and systemic violence growing up in his neighborhood, the same way many young Black and brown young people do today. Seeking protection and belonging, he turned to gang involvement and street life. At age 17, George was incarcerated and charged with multiple felonies related to his participation in a drive-by shooting. George broke the cycle of violence many incarcerated young men face by investing in his own leadership potential and that of other young people in his circumstances. Galvis' experiences led to his life commitment as an advocate and organizer for elevating the power of young people most affected by criminalization and violence. George Galvis is a speaker, researcher, practitioner, honoree. He is a board member of the Legal Services for Prisons with Children. He helped create All of Us or None, which fights for the rights of formerly and currently incarcerated people and families. George currently serves as the co-director of the California Alliance for Youth and Community Justice, a broad coalition working collectively to end youth incarceration, youth treatment as adults, and build community capacity for alternatives to incarceration that empower young people in California. Galvis is a leader of the Stop the Injunctions Coalition, which became the first community organizing effort in the nation to fully defeat a gang injunction in 2015. In addition, George has sponsored numerous state youth justice litigation and is legislation, and it is a co-author of California's Proposition 57 that passed by voters in 2016. He has been a keynote speaker and abroad and advisor at schools, lockdown facilities, universities, and conferences throughout the country and abroad, including the United Nations. George has been recognized by the Bay Area News Group and Comcast as a hometown hero, and it is a recipient of the 2013 California Peace Prize for the California Wellness Foundation. George's greatest achievement is his family. He is a loving husband to Catalina Garzón Sandoval and proud father of the 3 beautiful daughters and women warriors in the making, Micaela, Ayaskatsili, and
Ashley.
Sorry, and Kiyari. His daughters and family inspire him every day to be a better man. Thank you, George.
Thank you, Bibi.
For being here.
let me just say I'm embarrassed, and I'm really apologize that my staff sent y'all the long bio. That was really unnecessary. So I should have taken a page out of Kumi's playbook and just given the one sentence bio. So I apologize to y'all for that. But let me go ahead and take a moment to introduce my sister from another mister, Ivelisse Bibi Gilestra. She's a community organizer by trait and spirit. Believes in deconstructing the narrative, which enforces an assimilation and normalization on the effects of the prison industrial complex in Black and Brown and Indigenous communities, while envisioning effective ways of defining justice inclusive of community healing. She was raised by a mosaic of ritual practices, affirming ancestral wisdom, from cages to botanicas, affirming la resistencia cultural, oral tradition by ways of corner bodega, arieto, talks, and political education, uprooting the historical wounds of colonialism. So that's my sister from another mister and co-moderator, a.k.a. Bibi. Thank you, Bibi.
Thank you, everyone. And as we recognize that in our healing and the political work that we do, it is also about reclaiming and affirming our whole being and disrupting and unlearning the Western epistemology that has really forced us into this way of just individualism. So I'm really honored to come into the community with you folks, to share space, to build, and let's start our dialogue.
Cool. Let's jump right into it, y'all. So, first question. Tell us a little bit more about who you are, the work you're doing, and what legacy are you bringing here today? And let's go ahead and kick it off with Baba Sekuo.
Okay. Right now, Sister B, what's her name? Hey, sis, what's your name?
Bibi?
Anyhow, yeah, me, so I think we said, I'm one of the leaders.
Hey, y'all, I think we're having some technical difficulties with Baba Sekuo, so apologies. Hopefully, it looks like we lost him, but hopefully he's going to be able to rejoin very shortly. But for the sake of respecting everybody's time, same question. We're going to go ahead and we're going to kick it over to Kumi. You're on mute right now.
Hello. Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Hello?
We hear you, Kumi. Right on. Thank you.
A bit more about myself and the legacy that I want to leave. I'm building myself up as the ultimate creative. Well, first, let me say my full name. I couldn't change it on Zoom. Kumi Owusu. I'm in Ghana currently, and I've been in the space of wanting to introduce myself as my full name for a number of years now, and being here, it's like solidified that for me. So, building myself up as the ultimate creative to like creatively console and like write for people. And the legacy that I plan to leave, not just with that, but just like as a person, is community. I'm from being a student of people. Like I've always been around like intergenerational people, multicultural people, and just learning and soaking up as much human knowledge as I can to better understand people and myself. So that's why I've come to like really fully understand the importance of my name, right, and stating your flood benefits of people in the past. And yeah, when it comes to community, just like the healthiest and most like sacred practices of it, so the community can sustain itself and like we don't always have to go outward when all we have to do is go within. So that's the legacy that I plan on leaving.
Right on, Kumi. Appreciate you, fam. Baba Sekuo, I'm sorry we lost you momentarily. We'd love to kick it right back to you, though.
I was saying that working now with the Northeast Political Prisoner Coalition, an organization of political activists who advocate for the release of political prisoners and prisoners of war held here in the U.S. I've been doing that since my release in 2014. Or actually, we started 2015. So that's the work I'm doing. We try to work with groups that are advocating for their release, the release of people like Kumi Abu Jamal, Sadiq.
Sekuo's energy is so powerful that every time we get on a stool,
It freezes up. So,
they can take it.
yeah. So we're gonna hopefully Baba Sekuo will reconnect with us momentarily. But in the meantime, in between time, we're gonna kick it over to Brother Alex.
Peace. Power to the people. What's good? So Alex, they, them, Alex, Al Toro, Love, he, from Brooklyn, New York, and the legacy that I come with from here is, from like they were talking about introduction, my family been moving around a lot. They've been moved around a lot. And they had to do a lot of things to sacrifice and survive to get me here, for me to be here where I'm at. And my ancestors and elders have done that to get me where I'm at. So the legacy I come from is just like a lot of strong energy. It's like a lot of strong energy. My mom, who is like 7 years clean from drugs, who was affected by the crack epidemic, who definitely like struggled every day just to go to work, just to take care of us. And my grandmother as well, who traveled from another country, bringing her children there, just to figure out how to find a better life under these structures, under this lifestyle. So I definitely come with like a lot of energy of my women, but also like just of my family and our struggle, the energy of our struggle, where we come from. And then also the work that I'm doing, I'm with H.O.L.L.A. How lives we go together. And we do a lot of dope organizing work that's centered on a lot of grassroots movements. Right now, we're in our Healing Justice Movement 2.0, which is another form and version of this Healing Justice movement. Y'all already see we're in COVID time, so we're doing our 5-part webinar series. So we're trying to also still engage with our community, give back through giving our knowledge, through sharing relationships, through building relationships. We got Sekuo here. We want young people to see who Sekuo about. You feel me? So I think it's so much important knowledge that is just been sharing through these 5-part webinar series. We also are doing like TA services for like other organizations, creating curriculum that's really on our Afrocentric worldview, on how we see the world, how we navigate the world, how we need to be ready for the world, which is all entailed about our history, our culture, our elders, our ancestors, the families that we build with till today, our friendships. So we do a lot of engagement with communities. Not too long ago, last month, we was doing teaching Asada circles, where we have circles where we're reading Asada, the book Asada, when we learning, when we having deep discussions that we usually don't have in our communities, that we really don't talk about because of the fear and the structures of white supremacy, how it's so deep within us. And that's the thing. We need to get the white man out of us. That's the real shit. And I pass.
We got a victim settler colonizers. That's what I'm talking about. Right on, Alex. Baba Sekuo, we was just commenting that your energy every time you're ready to spit some game and knowledge is so powerful it upsets the technology. But we're gonna kick it right back to you to close this out.
Well, I don't know. Every time, like you say, every time I get to talking, they cut me off. But I'm happy to be here with you all. You know, this is part of the continuum, the continuity of struggle. You know, most of you are generations under me, although there are generations coming that's under you. We have to pass on our information, our experiences, and keep this here thing going till we have complete freedom of people in this universe and in the world that we live in. Because it can't just stop with individuals. If it stops with individuals, then the individual will find soon that they are not free. Then they cannot be free as long as I'm oppressed, or you're oppressed, or someone else is oppressed. So I'm just glad to be here. I'm trying to rush a little bit before they cut me off again. But I'm
Take
here.
your time. Take your time, Sekuo.
I'm here to try to, like I say, keep this struggle going on, keep it moving. As was said earlier, I've been involved in a lot of things, a lot of organizations. We've done a lot of things. When we look at the world today, a lot of people say that the Black Panther Party was defeated. It wasn't defeated. It continues. When we go into a school today and we see that children being fed breakfast, that's the continuing of the programs that the Black Panther Party started. When we see free health clinics around, that was started by the Black Panther Party. There was no testing of my mind. I guess just closed up on me. Shit. Well, it'll come to me later on. But in the hospitals, our children are tested for sickle cell. That started. We started the first sickle cell testing here in New York. You know, so there's a lot. So there was no defeat, and it's an ongoing struggle, and that's what we're trying to do: keep this struggle going on, add to it, build to it. I stand on the shoulders of greatness, and you stand on the shoulders of greatness, and your children will stand on your shoulders of greatness, and we must keep that going on. We must recognize our greatness and the work that we've done and the work that we're doing, and pass it on to the next generation. And that's what I'm here hoping that I can add to that process today.
Thank you, Baba Sekuo. And yeah, man, my elders from American Indian Movement, they say Indian wars never ended. You know what I'm saying? So from Wounded Knee to Standing Rock, you know what I'm saying? We ain't never given nothing up. We ain't never accepted no defeat. We keep on. So thank you for that, Baba Sekuo. Before we move to the next question, I actually got a probing, just a little follow-up question that I wanted to kind of, and we'll start off with you, Baba Sekuo, and then we'll kind of work our way backward, Alex and Kumi. But, in your bio, there was some very explicit and, troubling information, and it's something we're all aware of in terms of, COINTELPRO and state violence and the war and genocide of African and indigenous peoples, in the so-called United States, right? And so as somebody who is a survivor of torture, and sort of the dehumanization as a result of your political activity, I'm wondering if you could share, specifically since this is really a healing justice panel, about what are some of the practices that you've embraced in order to move beyond that trauma of that, to continue to be a fighter that's, fighting for the love of your people. You know what I'm saying?
There it is right there. Just trying to be a fighter for my people. I recognize that whatever they do to me, that's all part of the struggle. They've done worse to others. My comrade, like Bibi said in my introduction, he was murdered while lying on the ground. And they just actually walked up behind him and put a bullet in the back of his head, while he was laying face down on the ground. So that they took me in and brutalized me, beat me, burned me with cigars and cigarettes, and pull my toenail out and stick my head in the toilet while flushing it. It's things like that. I feel like I got away lightly compared to what some of my other comrades have went through. Like the murder of my comrade while laying on the ground, and what his family had to go through with his loss. My family didn't have to go through that. I'm still here. I've been able to embrace my great-grandchildren, my grandchildren, my children. So I feel like what we going through, this is what we've always went through. Our forefathers, our foremothers, our parents before us, during slavery, during the Indian Wars, because I'm part Native American. My great grandmother was full Cherokee. So we've always been through this type of suffering, and we call on our ancestors, the struggles that they went through, and we see that they went through them and they continue, and they brought us on here. So we know that we can do it. We know that as long as there's breath in our bodies, we can continue to struggle. So that's how I keep going. I call on the creator of the universe. I call him Allah. And I pray every day, sometimes 5 times a day, but I don't always get all 5 prayers in. But I pray every day. I never let a day go past. The first thing I do in the morning when I wake up, I thank my creator for bringing me here and asking to give me the strength to keep on, to carry on this struggle, and to protect me as I go on with this struggle. And before I go to bed at night, I do the same thing. So I make sure that I'm connected to a greater spirit, something greater than me, a power that I can call on to continue to do the work I do. So that's basically how I got through it. While they were torturing me, the anger got to a point where I didn't feel nothing else. Truthfully, I literally got to a point where I didn't even feel the pain. It was like, F you. Do what you can, do your best. I got no more for you but fight. That's all you can get from me. From this point on, you can get nothing but fight. And that's how I made it through. The pain came in the hospital. For the next 3 months, I'm laying in the hospital. Yeah, that's when the pain was there. But while the actual torture was going on, I got past it. It really, I don't know if it was the creator or what, but I literally got to a point where I didn't feel the pain no more. While they was destroying my pancreas, it was like this here, just like somebody was slapping on my stomach. It wasn't no pain there no more. And so I guess that's how I got through it, and that's how I continue to go through it. And I guess that's how our people made it. When they was torturing and using branding irons to brand our people and to bull whip them, and their backs was all bloodied and swelling up. How did they get through that? How did they make it to the next day to pick up their son and say, "Hang on, son, it's gonna be better. We're gonna make it. We're gonna get over this here." That's how they did it. I mean, pain is just pain. After a while, you accept it and you move on. How do a sister bring in a 9-pound baby out of her stomach? I don't know. The thought of it just amazes me that they can do it. But the Creator gives you the strength to do what you have to do. And all you have to do is accept that you're gonna do it. Period. I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna make it through it. They're not gonna break me. And you know, folks ask me, how did I do 33 years in the worst jails in America? That's how you do it. You do it one day, 1 minute at a time. You just do it. You don't really have to think about it. Of course, you're involved in it, so you have to do it. You know, it comes to one of two things: give up or survive. Most of us will choose survival, and that's how I did it. To answer your question, I hope I answered it.
Yes, thank you, Baba Sekuo. We're blessed and grateful for your energy and your legacy.
And everything you have endured. This is, I sometimes think, right, healing, revolutionary spirit, revolutionary work requires that nurturing vision, right? Being present and also acknowledging when one needs to create a space to be present. And Sekuo is to me is so inspiring that you, despite everything, you are able to do the work in a grounding foundation that is not rooted in anger or only in pain or even scattered energy, because you exude, right? Every time that I have seen you, it's almost like I just smile, like I didn't even know the extent of the torture, right? We gotta call things for what they are. And still, you have such a kind spirit. So I want to ask
Can
the
I say one
panelists.
thing to that? That Che Guevara spoke on that. He said that this is based on love. A revolutionary, he struggles from love. And so the hatred for the enemy is not the guiding force. We never allow that to be the guiding force. The love of the people guides us.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it is how we disrupt the disease, which is colonialism, right? With love. In our movement, we know that we are a mosaic of people, young folks, youth, elders, folks with different upbringings, different ethnic backgrounds, different geographic spaces, gender, sexuality, spiritualities. So how do we acknowledge one another, especially when we are hurting? And what lessons you want to share about working across these intersections in the movement building and sustaining grassroots movement for community wellness, self-determination, and liberation across youth, adults, elders, and such intersections? And we could start with Kumi, since you were talking about not looking for that outside sources and tapping into that life force within. So when you are doing work with different folks, something that you want to share, how do you, basically anything that you see that causes a disconnection, and how do you learn from that and use as a catalyst to change?
Yes. So, like I said briefly, like introductions are very important, right? Like how you introduce yourself. And a constant that I've seen is like people are always talking about the issues when it comes to Black people, especially Black people. Like we're always talking about that before we talk about what we've accomplished, what we're doing, what we're actively doing to better ourselves, right? And when people are met with that kind, especially the youth, because it's typical like crime and like we don't care about certain things and we don't know how to carry ourselves or whatnot. It's the kind of mentality of like, if that's how you see me, that's how I'll be, that's how I'll act, right? So there's no room for, there's this little faith on like the side of like, oh, they understand where I'm coming from. When of course they do, they live the same life that we're living. It's the same land, the same practices, the same everything. We have to I don't think that elders praise the present enough, and then I don't think like the youth honor the past enough. I don't think there's enough like understanding on both sides of like, okay, you went through what I went through and I can learn from you, but you can also learn how I'm dealing with it now. So when we meet each other and we're in the same room, the first thing has to be acknowledgement for what we're trying to do, whether in our personal lives, in the spaces that we take up, the positivity that we're trying to bring. Because a lot of it, too, is just like lack of understanding and lack of knowledge. And that's not even our fault. It's not our fault that a lot of the work that people have done is not accessible to us in our schools, not accessible to us in our neighborhoods. Our families aren't educating us about it. So we come to the room and there are people here that know that can be primary resources for us. We have to take advantage of that and acknowledge that first so that everything that comes afterwards, we're receptive to it, right? Like we're vulnerable. Like we hear that we can be safe here, and not in terms of a safe space of like anything I say, like everybody will agree with and everyone's like, yes, man. Like, no, like it will be listened to and it's like, okay, you have the right idea, but this is what you're talking about. And I was there, so I can tell you how I did it, right? And you're not alone in what you're going through. You're not alone in your struggle. Like, reach out to people and reach out to me. Like, in introducing ourselves, we're saying that I'm a part of you. I'm your sister. I'm your brother. I'm your friend. I'm your comrade, and we're in this together. And there isn't much room for that when we start off with like all the things that we have failed to do that aren't even our fault. I saw a quote the other day that said we can't judge people for things that they didn't even know that they had to deal with, right? Like I was born into the life that I'm living, and literally everyone else. Playing the cards that we're dealt, we're trying our best. Like if we're doing everything out of love, we're doing the best that we can, and that has to be recognized for it to be understood. Instead of like, I'm letting life do whatever life wants to do to me instead of me trying to actively take control of my life. And I'm also in a Pan-African group, and whenever they complete, they say, I'm complete, so I'm complete.
Complete and whole, my beautiful sister. Thank you. Liz, the same questions for Alex, and even practices that you tap into or spiritual alignments in order to create intergenerational connection when you see that those barriers are present. Like when I am dealing with my nephew, it's gonna be different if I'm trying to build with my mother, right? I gotta bring the whole orchestra, even though like, instruments, I'm gonna try to create a space where there is some room for vulnerability, like Kumi was saying, but also, right, tapping into that openness so that we can build and look for solutions without me holding to attachment to expectations, right? Also giving room so that, growth and unfoldment comes at its own pace, just like obviously like others did with me. So, Alex?
Thank you for that. And yes, Kumi, I definitely second everything you were saying. I was feeling everything you were saying. And of course, Sekuo was good, man. Just keep saying he's good. Definitely on the live with you. We definitely appreciate, just for everything that you've done and still giving to us. I think, one of the points I want to make about like practices and even barriers or things that we could think about or practice on more, I think is the honoring truth telling, honoring what needs to be said. And I say that like, bell hooks, they stated that lying isn't just like not telling the truth, it's also withholding truth. So like thinking like, my mom or my grandmother, they usually don't talk about like their relationships, things that they've done in their past, things, and honestly, like I said, like those things are connected to like my relationship to to the family, to you, to me, you know, and how those are connected to like our culture and our family. So thinking about like, yo, how many elders or how many of our adults don't tell our nieces, nephews, daughters, sons, things from our past, or things that like we know we have done, or things that we're thinking about, ways that we're moving, and don't have that connection, relationship, try to be vulnerable. And I say this as a practice because, you know, with my nephew was living with me last year due to, you know, many things. And his mom and my mom, his mother, which is my sister from my father's side, and my mother don't have a good, you know, they don't got the best relationship, good connection. And they did have some back and forth, certain arguments, and that, you know, caused some stuff to go down. So I had to sit with my nephew who was like 15, and in my head before I was like, yo, am I gonna build with my nephew about like, yo, what's going on? Because, you know, like when the room gets quiet and people feel the energy, he gonna feel the energy. He gonna know like, yo, mom, what's good with you and grandma? Like, he gonna feel the energy. So I had to build with him about like, yo, you know, they going through something right now, and it's best that like we help them figure out how they can communicate better and such and such. And he understood that. So just understanding like, you know, our young people are open and willing and have big hearts and minds to understand the whole picture of what's going on in our lives as being elders and adults. And they could withstand that struggle. They could struggle with us, struggle with you. So I think like just one of those pieces is a part of like, and that's for young people too, because I feel like young people, we picked up this kind of like thing about lying too, so we don't be telling our truth. We're like, yeah, I just came home, I was doing mad dirt, mad wild stuff, and I'm not telling my mom how my whole day went. I'm lying like, yeah, mom, I went to school, it was awesome, But I'm dead serious not telling her like, yo, cops may come to the house, please, all this and other, you feel me? Like, we need to build and share, not out of fear, but out of because we know we protect each other, we love each other. So I want to share that. Thank you.
Thank you, Alex. And Sekuo, same question. Lessons, barriers that you have seen, practices when it comes to building and creating intergenerational connections.
Just listening to what and Alex just said, I kind of relate to what they're saying. You know, I think that this is what we're doing here. We carry on, we pass on. Just listen to what Alex was just saying about how he said his view about what was
That energy is powerful. Kumi.
Yes, I to say until like Brother Sekou gets his like connection like situated. Also, chat. I'm overwhelmed with what he said so far. Like I didn't really know how to communicate it, but after hearing what Alex said, like it reminded me communication is one of the biggest things that we can never stop learning how to communicate with people. And I'm learning now like how to communicate emotionally. And I feel like that's one of the biggest barriers, especially within like the Black community. Like we don't know how to honestly and effectively communicate our emotions. And because we don't, a lot of conversations, whether our intention is to have like a positive one, they sometimes go left just because we internalize so much and it's so much trauma that when it's time to release it, you know, and articulate it, that in itself is hard. So we're talking to people that we think don't understand us or don't want to understand us, it's going to be harder to do. So I think just giving ourselves a break and like saying it plain, stating it as simply as we can. Like, I'm communicating from love. I'm communicating from a place of vulnerability. I'm communicating from
Sekuo, are you back? I think Kumi is also manifesting some great energy.
Yeah, I think I'm here for the moment until they decided that there's something they don't want you to hear that I got to say. I don't know. Maybe the connection in my building is messed up. But I think just listening, like I was saying, the point is communicating, speaking, talking to each other, elders talking to youth talking to elders, being truthful, telling your truth as you know it to be, and just communicating. That's the key. I mean, that's what I hear both of them saying. That you have to communicate. You have to talk. You have to tell your truth, and allow people to accept your truth. And if they don't, that's all you can do is give them the truth. You give them give them what it is. Say what you know or what you think. I mean, I just listened to, like I was about to say, Alex was mentioning about talking to his nephew, and it kind of reminded me of a dynamic that I was just going through with one of my granddaughters is at the house right now, and I'm back and sit with me doing this webinar, but she, so how do you reach out to her? You can't force. She's 20. You can't force her to do that. I get finished. How did it go? And I'll tell her. And then I'll critique about why you come and see how it was. Things to say that probably from that you can grow from. But what I'm saying here is that we have to encourage our younger folks, our peers to get involved, to speak truth, to hear us.
Thank you. Can I share one more point?
Of course. And Kumi was also cut, and I want to give her also.
I guess maybe I'm speaking too long. My dialogue is too long. I'm gonna pass it on.
No, don't say that. Your dialogue is just the moment it needs to arrive, and you can extend it however you. Yes.
It is what it is. I basically said what I wanted to say. That it's about communicating. It's about the youth speaking to the elders speaking to the youth, and us speaking to our peers. And try to grow from that and organize. Torre used to say when they asked him what should we do, he would organize. So come together now, organize to be dealt with and make it happen. So that's like Kwame, let's communicate and organize.
Hey, y'all remember the poem, "The Revolution Will Not Be Televised," right? So, I feel like there's a little something going on with that right now, But as Baba shared earlier,
might have something to do with it,
as Baba, can't stop, won't stop, no matter what they throw at us. You know what I'm saying? Can't stop, won't stop. Yes. Torture, can't stop, won't stop. Incarceration, can't stop, won't stop. You know what I'm saying? As Baba Sekuo said, it's like you either give up or you survive. And we come from a lineage of survivors. You know what I'm saying? So, yeah, we're going to keep on.
I Alex, you wanted to add something on Kumi?
Just one more point. I think just another thing, just thinking about as, I grew up, without a father in my household and just like without like just having barely a relationship with my father. So I had a lot of, women around me, but also I've seen a lot of like the women in my family get harmed by men, but also women in my neighborhood get harmed by men. So just thinking about like, me growing up as a young boy, I really didn't think of having a kind of relationship with like my elders who were men, or with like adults who were men in a certain way, because some of them just didn't show that kind of and I internalized it in a way too. Like I have internalized in a way like, yo, like these dudes out here just harm, like they harming my moms, my sisters. So it's like, and I'm in my body, I'm a male, so I'm also trying to navigate. So I think like those conversations aren't being like had about like, young boys who internalize not seeing the love and connection from male bodies, but also understanding like they're also in this world with their male bodiness. How do they navigate that if they're not having conversations with other male bodies who's older than them? So just thinking about that.
Right on, y'all. I want to dive deeper into this idea and concept of, because I think it's extremely powerful that we got two young, activists, organizers, freedom fighters, along with, our elder, Baba Sekuo. And, this kind of intergenerational bridge building is essential, you know what I mean? Because as my elders have said, you don't know where you're going unless you know where you've been. And, Western culture and colonialism has this idea that once you reach a certain age, you just kind of let out to pasture, you know what I mean? They discard their elders. You see how white folks do. They put their elders in old folks' homes, you know what I'm saying? But in black and brown families and households, we don't do that. We take care of our elders, you know what I'm saying? And so it's a fundamentally different worldview. They say children should be seen, not heard. And some of us internalize that kind of toxic mentality instead of acknowledging that children are the dreamers, you know what I'm saying? And so I wanted to kind of hear from y'all a little bit about ways that we're effectively building those bridges, because there's so many different wedges that get thrown, particularly generationally. It's like classic Willie Lynch syndrome, divide and conquer. You know what I mean? They try to divide the men from the women, light skin from the dark skin, you know what I mean? The elders and the young people. So tell me a little bit about some of the ways that we're overcoming some of those wedges, particularly around the gender, not just gender divide, but the generational divide. Why don't we go ahead and we start with Baba Sekuo. Let's see if COINTELPRO is going to interrupt this message. You on mute right now, Baba.
I was listening to what you were saying. Not exactly sure what the question was. I think you asked him how do we connect or how do we...
Yeah, what are ways that we're overcoming...
Communicate?
Yeah, some of the ways that we're overcoming some of those obstacles, those dividing obstacles generationally.
Well, some ways is this here. Created for us to gather and elders to come and get out to our elders, our youth, and checking on them, to see what's going on in their lives, and take part in.
All right, looking like we losing Baba Sekuo a little bit, but what I heard in my takeaway was also reinforcing some things I heard from you earlier, Kumi, which is that importance of acknowledgement and connection. So maybe you want to elaborate a little bit where Baba left off at and share from your own perspective and experience. How are we overcoming some of those barriers, those generational barriers, to build stronger intergenerational connections and solidarity in the freedom struggle?
think some connection stuff, but I could definitely.
Yeah, Alex, please jump in. Appreciate you.
Definitely. So one thing before I go, because I feel like I got some notes here. So one thing is the journey, and we know the journey as like you said, like we don't just be like putting out like our grandmothers, our elders in like some nursing home. We journey with each other. Like nah, mom, I'm with you. Sometimes I'm like, nah, mom, I'm gonna move back in. I might have to live here again with you. You understand? Like we are journeying with each other in a way where it's about like love, relationship. It's not like some hierarchy thing. Like, oh, you my grandmother, so like I can't have hard conversations with you. But also, I can't hold you accountable when I think you said something wrong. You understand? So, like, understanding, like, we have, like, what is that kind of relationship where you're journeying with people who's either older than you, younger than you, but y'all are on the grounds where y'all are doing truth sharing. Y'all are, like engaging deeper in y'all relationship. Not no surface shit, like, oh, hey, yeah, let's, like, the regular shit, how you doing? Like, no, like, oh, I remember you were saying, like, yo, your mom, like, you need food stamps? Like, what's good? Like, can we, like, build more about what's going on at home? Let me build more about your love life, because I know we be talking about everything under the sun, but you definitely don't be talking about your love life. So just, like, the conversations that we not having, like we said, and I think, like, it's through having having the trust to go through that journey with that young person, with that elder. Because one, we're not trying to be perfect. We're not trying to be perfect, and to honor the fact that, like, yo, Corey, A-Rox, these my older brothers. These my, like, you feel me? Like, so the way they're guiding me, I want to honor that. And they're not trying to be perfect. They're just trying to be them. They're trying to learn how to heal. So I'm trying to understand, like, yeah, I'm trying to heal too. George, that's my older brother. I'm trying to heal too. We journeying together. So understanding that process, and that process takes time. It's not going to, that process takes time, and that process is beautiful. It doesn't mean we're going to, that process is beautiful. And another thing when it comes to movement building and just learning about history, ancestors, elders, organizers, when I started learning about my history and the movements, I really started having more love and connection to my elders. I really started being like, yo, and my ancestors, I really started being like, yo, this is this kind of feeling that you feel when you read your own history and like, it hurts, it's harmful, it's like, it's hard, it's struggles going down your throat, swallowing it, but then you like reading about your elders and ancestors who fought back, who took back, who did revolutionary work, that refuse you, that just gives you more energy, like, yo, my elders been doing so much for me. And then put that in the context of, like, the elders that you just know on a daily basis. Like, yo, my grandmother had to go through some stuff in Honduras just to get to America. You understand? Like, and she still go through some stuff in America. Like, my other grandmother, who's from Mississippi, had to go from, as a young girl, going from Mississippi to North Carolina, then to New York. That's some stuff right there. So I have to really, like, uplift my elders, because of me decolonizing myself and learning about my history and my ancestry. That way I, like, just appreciate them more, and then actually want to journey with them more, because I know they getting older, and one day they gonna be ancestors. So I want to be in that realm. So when I'm an elder, I'm like, I learn from you. Like, you transition, I learn from you. So I think it's very important that we do that process with each other. Sorry for talking so long.
Nah, that was solid. Appreciate you, Alex. Kumi, same question. Going back to you. We had lost both you and Baba Sekuo momentarily. Happy to have y'all back. So what are some of the barriers that we have to really kind of strengthen some of the intergenerational relationship building to strengthen our movements in this freedom struggle?
To piggyback what Alex said, definitely a lot more personal work needs to be done to recognize, like, who we are and who we are when we speak to, like, other Black people, right? Like, we are the same people. Like, times have changed and everything, but the will and the spirit is.
All right, we're having some technical difficulties again. So, like, I just appreciate the patience with everybody who's watching this. You know what I'm saying? Yeah, technology, man, can be a mug. You know what I'm saying? And I know there's a lot of people who want to disrupt this message that we're trying to bring to y'all. That's real. But we're gonna, as Baba Sekuo said, we're gonna keep on. You know what I mean? We're gonna keep pushing. So, I guess a follow-up question to that would really be, a lot of, I think there's been an awareness, particularly the last 10, 15 years, to really kind of acknowledge the historical intergenerational trauma and the impact that has on us. And a lot of conversations around the need for healing has emerged as a result of that in a beautiful and healthy way. That said, what I think sometimes happens when we focus and fixate on the historical intergenerational trauma is we can also pathologize ourselves, you know what I mean? And get stuck in that trauma. And so, tell me, what are some ways that you acknowledge the historical intergenerational wisdom? Because we had a history. We had a history before the invaders, before the settler colonizers, you know what I'm saying? Before the genocide. And so, what's some of the historical intergenerational wisdom that guides you in this work, that supports you in your healing journey? And whoever, I'm going to say, we just do a popcorn style. Whoever feels compelled to jump in, get in where you fit in, y'all.
I think for me, I grew up in the church. My people were real strict Pentecostals. And it was a village, when it takes a village. That was a big part of the village. Part of what is the lost neighborhoods. We done lost real community. We got neighborhoods, but we don't have community. We don't, that pop community that we call unity. We lose that. When I was coming up, everybody knew me. All the neighbors, all the adults, they knew that I'm Miss Burns' son. And if they seen me doing something wrong, they would check me. They might even stick me up on my butt. If they told my mom, she wasn't gonna get angry for them chastising me like that. Like today, people, you don't put your hands on my child. Well, in my day, you put your hands on that child. You touch his backside. You let him know. You can't do that. When your mother ain't around, I'm your mother. I'm your father. We don't have that. No, we don't have too much of that today, and we forget that we have that commonality. We are all part of the same thing. Like today, we don't think that our elder or our youth don't have the same commonality. We don't have nothing in common. And so we don't often want to reach out to them. When in fact, we are all the same. We have everything in common. We have the same common enemy that we pursue the same common problems, whether it be housing, food, shelter, clothing, education, medical, you name it, the same problem that I had with coming up, you guys have coming up. You might not realize it, but it's there. When we talk about police brutality and the police murder, that's always been in the community. That's nothing new. That's what they were organized to do. Policing comes from slave catching. Their whole thing was to control the slave. Now it is to control control us in the community. But it's all the same. The problems are the same, and what we have to recognize is that they're the same. We have to talk about that sameness and talk about ways of overcoming these problems that we have. Whether it might be whether it's housing, food, shelter, clothing, police brutality, mass incarceration, whatever it is, we have to come together and recognize that we can't do it alone, and that we all involved in it. We all are caught up into it. That, as I mentioned before, one of us are oppressed, the others are oppressed. We have to make it we have to take the time to create the vehicles that will allow us to come together. When we talk, I just mentioned organize. That means we have to come up with structures. We have to come up with organizations. You know, how our lives all link together. That's what we need. We need organizations where we can all link together. You know, when we had organizations where, like the Black Panther Party, where people could walk in off the street and tell you their problem and get some help with that problem. Whether that might have been police brutality, whether that might be a slumlord that don't want to give you the service that you're supposed to have, or a slumlord that want to throw you out, and somebody else in there charging a little more rent than that he's charging you. Whatever it was, you know, we was able to come together and work collectively to deal with that problem. That's what we have to do today. We have to recognize that we have common problems, the same problems, and have to be willing to create the vehicles to work together to solve these problems. And I think this is a step towards that, what we're doing today, and some of the organizations that exist today. You know, I deal with trying to free political prisoners. Since I've been home, I've been able to work to bring Herman Bell home, to work to help bring Jalil Muttaqin home, to work to help bring Seth Hayes home. That type of organizing and working together with others who are doing that type of work is what helped bring me home. And I recognize that they recognize it. And if we're going to bring Sundiata home, if we're going to bring Mumia home, if we're going to do something to give homeless people homes, we're going to do things to help people that are hungry eat. We have to have organizations. We have to have collective organizations. We have to work with others to solve these problems. And that's what it's all about, working together.
Right on, Baba. Appreciate you always. Kumi, Alex, either of y'all want to jump in on that question?
What's the question again? Sorry.
Yeah, it was basically understanding.
I just wanted to share this quick.
Go ahead, Kumi. Go ahead, Kumi.
I'm sorry. I just wanted to share things because, like, the connection is playing games. But I think it was perfect, brother. And following what Brother Sekou said, like, and what I was trying to say, I have a friend who's 25 years old who goes by a Garveyite. Like, he calls himself a Garveyite, right? Knowledge of, like, what Marcus Garvey's goals were for black-skinned people, for Africans scattered in the
Man, every time we trying to get deep, man, it gets interrupted. I can't wait till we can all do this shit in person. You know what I'm saying? We could gather in person,
Yeah.
and build in the old school ways. You know what I mean? But in the meantime, in between time, you know, we're gonna do what we can do our best in this format. Brother Alex, so the question was really just connecting, moving beyond the historical intergenerational trauma and acknowledging that we also have historical intergenerational wisdom. What are some of the traditional wisdom practices that have supported you in your healing journey?
Thank you so much. Yeah, I think, you know, definitely some of the practices that us at H.O.L.L.A do, we celebrate Kwanzaa, which is really tapping into like our blackness, our Afrocentric ideology, ways of living, ways we want to like be ourselves and uplifting ourselves and loving ourselves and our blackness and our Africanness. And I feel like through that process, we are also entering our ancestors and uplifting like the work our ancestors done, because our ancestors are us. We living through that they are us. I was reading about libations the other day and learned that when you do libations, it's also uplifting, acknowledging that your ancestors live in you. You are putting them out. You're bringing them out. You're bringing them out. You feel me? They're living within you. Your DNA. They're in your DNA. So understanding, how do we tap into our inner selves, like Kumi was saying? How do I tap into my inner self to let my ancestors out of me, to let that white man out, so I could tap into my ancestors and be the person that I need to be, with the purpose that I know I have. So I think like many practices, going back to the land, acknowledging the indigenous land, but also knowing that like the land also protects us and loves us. Doing rituals with the water, with the fire, with your community in that process, so they can know how to do that together. So I think there's so many things that is harming us, but there's so many things to heal us and restore us, to give us back that warrior spirit. And some things I also do on my own. Like I started doing rituals, and rituals could be anything that has so much intention and ancestry in it. So like I be working out, but not in the Eurocentric way where like, oh, you trying to look good and all that stuff. Like, no, when I work out, I may be playing my ancestors at first. So I may put on some Kwame Ture and just listen to my ancestors at first. And then I may have, I know y'all see, this is my baby Mika. She's an ancestor now. She transitioned. So I may have a picture of her right next to me when I'm working out, because she's with me. She's giving me energy. And then while I'm working out, like I said, it's not just I'm trying to get big. I'm trying to be strong. I'm working on my warrior spirit. I'm training. I'm not working out. I'm training. But also I'm thinking intentionally about my day, about what I'm going through, about how I'm feeling. How am I going to like get through my day? I need some energy. So that's why I'm calling on my ancestors in the nature around me. So I'm just thinking about, there's so many things I could be spoken about. Appreciate that.
Hey, brother, that answer was real inspiration, man, because I got to tell you, man, as a knucklehead on the block back in the day, I used to work out fiercely, and when I was locked up, I worked out fiercely, and when I became an activist, it felt like I ain't got time for all that. That's a distraction from, like, trying to free my people, you know what I'm saying? And I gave that shit up, homie, but the way you described it, the way you talked about evoking the ancestors and a different kind of intention and spirit that you put out there, that's real inspirational, man. I appreciate that response a lot, man. I just learned something today. Thank you for that, Alex. Kumi, you had a little something to say before the powers to be try to come in and disrupt that message, you feel me? So why don't you try to bring it real quick before they disrupt that shit again, feel me?
Yes, simply, we don't have to keep reinventing ourselves. Like, we can use our tools of like discernment and like the people in our community to already understand who we are, and now we have to move forward. And then just to close out the communication point, like we're not always communicating to be accepted. Sometimes we have to do the acceptance, right? We have to be the people that are open enough to understand different kinds of Black-skinned people and be willing to understand them and work with them, love them, right? Like welcome them into our space. I'm closing out Asada, like her autobiography, and I'm realizing like she touched on like a Black nation when she was in college. We need a Black network, and we already have it. We just need to like fortify it. And in doing that, by doing that, it's like, okay, this is who I am, this is how I identify. But as a Black-skinned person, spiritually, this is what I want. This is who I want to be, right? And who I am already. Learning and unlearning like how white people taught us to exist, but learning how we already on our own. And then everything will just work as it needs to work. I'm complete.
Right on,
Thank you.
Kumi.
Thank you for that. Now that you folks, some of you touch on on rituals and the importance of grounding ourselves. Also, I am one that I do practice a lot of of burials and rituals that elevate, but also that do the opposite of what it is intended, with the way that we embrace self-love, right? The way that we build or weave community, the way that we show love for one another, the way that we show love for Earth, right? So I always feel that sometimes we do a lot of rituals or we do practices, but as far as the freedom to really embrace that ultimate love affair that we should have with ourselves, with others, with the entrenched love for Earth, accepting one's power. So when one taps into that ancestral wisdom that you folks were talking about, is basically we're having the freedom to break those silences, right? Even if those silences means that, what is it that I'm ready to release? What is it that I've been holding on that I can release now? So sometimes it's freedom in challenging, existing roles that we have been socialized and have been engraved into our psyche. It could be that challenge, but I want to know, or I would like to hear, what is freedom to you? What does it mean? What does liberation look like? Basically, what we mean when we say okay, we're doing some intergenerational healing, we're doing some liberation. So what does it look like for you, and however you define it?
Could I just piggyback real quickly too, because I feel like we know what we trying to dismantle. That shit's clear as a motherfucker.
Right.
We know what we trying to dismantle, and we talk about freedom all the time. But I don't know if we all meaning the same thing when we talk about what freedom looks like. You know what I'm saying? So I want to hear from y'all. What does freedom look like?
No, I could definitely jump in about that one. So many things. So my first part, I believe, freedom means time to love, because definitely we don't have enough time to do and love. I know it's a big word. So many entities in love, which is care, the journey, struggling, healing, telling the truth. So so many things that we don't have time for. So it's really making time. Freedom is really making time for a practice of intentional love that is really rooted in community and in our families. Not just I'm trying to get love. I ain't get love. I need love. No, it's about what kind of love I could get. What kind of how can I reshape the love that I know and change it, and what kind of love can I get? And then I believe with freedom for us in our peoples, especially for Black and Brown people, is living together while disagreeing together. And while we're disagreeing, though we disagree with each other, is knowing undoubtedly that we have a bond that is connected with love that cannot be corrupted by white supremacy. So understanding I know my bro, he, that's his belief. But definitely, like Sekuo said, we got a common enemy though. So I know he ain't gonna turn on me. He loves me. He respects me. We from the same peoples. We the same lines. We got the same cultures. So definitely he ain't gonna turn on me over the system, over some white supremacy, over some capitalism. You understand? So that kind of freedom is what we need. That kind of freedom where we know undoubtedly that we're gonna disagree, but we're gonna hold each other down all the way till the wheels fall off and after. I believe also freedom is new experiences. I was just thinking about like young people who like even in COVID, they waking up every day just seeing the same shit every day. You know how harmful it is for me to wake up every day in my same neighborhood? I love my neighborhood. But just to see the same harmful stuff every day sometimes be a lot on us. So understanding like we need new experiences. Freedom means seeing new experiences. And those experiences doesn't mean like, oh, like butterflies and it means seeing and hearing hard conversations, seeing things like, yo, monuments of our ancestors, like, yo, yeah, Harriet Tubman was here. Like, oh, word, acknowledging that. I think like we need more experiences in the forest, in the land. You know, how do we survive with the land, survive off the land? That's freedom. That's so just understanding there's so many things that we think of freedom that we need to just look outside of our minds and imagine, but also know that we're going to have to struggle to sacrifice to get some of that freedom, which means coming out of our comfort zone.
Kumi, Baba Sekuo, either of y'all want to jump on that one?
This is a key question. I think this is the question that we need answer. We can give for this. Either be fair.
Maybe Kumi wants to answer, and then we go back to Baba Sekuo.
Yes. Well, first things first, I'd say that freedom is the fact that Brother Sekuo can be here with us, right? And like say his truth as freely as he is saying it, right? Freedom is the absence of fear and like all that comes from it. And like I started to think about things like all these words, like how they're actually practiced and manifest in our lives, like absence of fear, absence of doubt. Like we don't overthink what we say or what we do it with intention, and we trust ourselves and we have faith in ourselves. We believe in ourselves because we know that we are free, not just like to be free, to be without bounds, without limits. So if I start or I'm learning a trade, there isn't any limit to it that I can do. Like just keep going in it until something else stops me, right? Like freedom is just, because once you feel it, once you feel free in whatever you love doing, in love in itself, like loving people and just seeing what you can say and what you can feel and what you can do out of that love, out of that freedom. Like you don't want to stop, right? You're not gonna. It's going to encourage you to share it, to keep sharing that. So, like him being on the call and like there isn't anyone that's like hindering his truth or whatever happened, his experiences or any of our experiences. They're all valid. We can explain them. We can sit in them comfortably and know that like however far we've gotten it, so already we're not done, right? Because we can connect with other people and continually just keep learning more ways in how we're free. And feeling freedom is a special thing because the more that you like practice it, the more than you can share it in everything that you do and in yourself. Like, so I'm not just free like physically, but I'm free mentally and I'm free spiritually and I'm free emotionally. And whatever I need to do, however I need to call on those faculties, I can. And whatever I intend to do will get accomplished with how I intended, right? Like no one else is controlling my narrative. No one else is controlling my actions or my emotions or my mind. Like I am. And I know that I am because I can defend myself and I have faith in myself and I believe in myself. And it's not anything that I have to prove. It's a fact because I was born into all of this already. Like freedom is just understanding that like, again, it's not without, it's within. And that's a quote that I got from one of my friends. Like, it's not, we don't have to go searching for it. We have to feel it and then act from it. And I myself, like, I wasn't I didn't grow up with that understanding. I had to go through like experiencing hardships and then, okay, let me try and take it easy on myself because being alive is already hard. So in forgiving yourself, you free yourself. In allowing yourself to be loved, you free yourself. In loving yourself, you free yourself. Like it's constant and it's eternal. And only beautiful things can come from it. Like if it gets worse before it gets better, when it gets better, it'll be the best thing that ever happened to you because you kept going, right? So, and freedom is the option to keep going. And when you keep going, like the Bible says, even though I walk through the valley of death, I fear no evil. Like through my spirit that I'm protected. So I have no other choice but to keep going. I'm complete. Yes. Okay. Thank you.
I changed my Zoom meeting. Maybe this one will work a little better. I'm using my telephone now. Anyhow, I think freedom is something that we have to kind of define for ourselves and maybe for our people. There's individual freedoms, then there's collective freedom. When you say freedom, well, what does freedom look like? Are we talking about collectively? Are we talking about individually? What are we talking about? To me, the important question is, how do we, as a people, obtain freedom? The freedom to determine our own destiny, the freedom to determine the educational curriculum from kindergarten to the doctor's degree from our community. Who determines where we live, how we live? I think for us as a people, then we have to be talking about a nation. First of all, we need to be talking about, are we a people? A lot of African people of African descent in this country, don't even recognize that they are a people, that they are a clear, distinct people with the same history, problems, same language, same land mass, all of that. And if we're going to be a people, if we're going to be a free people, then we need to establish a country. We need to be able to say that this land here is our land. We control it. We're the government. We decide what type of financial system we're going to live under. We're no longer going to be corporate capitalists. We want to be some sort of African socialists. I mean, if that's what we decide, but we have to come up with, first of all, the knowledge that we are a people and that we have a right to be a free, distinct people, and from there, struggle to make that a reality. When the white man moved into this here land and start stealing it from the indigenous people, they decided that they wanted a certain border that they were going to consider theirs. Same as, even though there was other people living on that border, in the borders, you know, they decided that they were going to take that land. Now, they were wrong as far as I'm concerned. That was a criminal offense. But that's what people do. That's how people have been establishing their freedom to control a particular land mass. They move in on it, they take it, and they declare it theirs because they've been there for X amount of time. I think for me, I like the way the Republic of New Africa did it. They went to the native councils here in the Americas and told them what they wanted to do and asked their permission to do it on a certain land mass and got that permission from them before they went forward to establish what they call now the Republic of New Africa. I think we have to start thinking in them terms of can we win control of, even though we went to the native, the indigenous people and asked for that permission, they are not the ones in control of this land now. There are some white folks with guns who are in control of this land. And if we want to establish a free and independent nation where we can, in fact, determine what's going to be the educational curriculum for our children, determine what type of economic system we're going to live under. We're going to have to decide that we're going to commit our lives to that struggle, and it's going to be a long-term struggle. It's not something that's going to happen in the first year, So first of all, then, what is freedom? We have to decide that. Really, to answer that question, we need to, as a people, create committees to sit down and decide what is freedom to us. What will be a free and independent nation? What type of educational system? What type of financial system will we live under? And will we be willing to defend that? Because you will have to. Look at Cuba. It's been 60 years since they declared their independence and their freedom, and still these devils are attacking them and trying to destroy what they have been trying to build. So we have to be clear that if we want freedom, it's not going to come easy, and it's not going to be cheap. It's going to be it's going to cost us lives. We're going to pay a blood price that others have paid. Everyone else. We look over there in Palestine and see what those Zionists are doing over there. They are establishing a land that they're going to call their free and independent state, which they already are doing. They already are calling it their free and independent state, and they have went to the UN and got the support of other people to say, yes, this is their land. They can have this, that they have a right to this land, and that no one has the right to take that from them. Even though what they are doing is taking that land from someone else, someone who has been on that land for hundreds, if not thousands of years. They're actually to build their land. They're taking someone else's land. So when we start talking about freedom, we have to think of these types of things. What are you willing to commit for freedom? What is freedom? Is freedom, yes, a piece of the American pie? Do we want to be free to exploit other people in the world, and to demand a certain amount of whatever that exploitation presents? Do we want to be Afro-Americans, Cuban Americans, or some other kind of American? Personally, I don't. There's nothing about the history of America that I want to be a part of. From the time that they set foot on this land with that fool Columbus, who thought he was in India, till the day, there's nothing that they have done that that I want to be a part of. That I want to say, oh, I'm so proud to be a part of that. There is none. So if we want to have our own free and independent land that we can be proud of, that we can pass on to our children, and that we know that our children are going to control that land in a positive, humane way, we're going to have to struggle for it with blood. Not only with blood, but that's going to be the bottom line. These folks are not going to give you freedom. You have to take it. You have to. For me, so when we say freedom, I'm talking about land and independence. That's what that freedom is.
Sovereignty. Thank you, Baba Sekuo. Thank you so much. We should have gotten the cell phone way earlier because it is so much, right? Knowledge, and we only have like a few minutes left. And I know Alex probably wants to say something, but freedom, collective liberation. Kumi said being unafraid, not having to really be surviving, not having to be part of this economic apartheid that we live in, having the freedom to be joyful with one another without competition. So I wanted to ask another question, but it's really quick. Since our demands, overproduction, capitalism, the way that we even put the work on social justice is always so. One word or one sentence on how you really tap into that sacredness of healing, so that you don't burn out, so that everybody that is doing this work does not be consumed by it, because we're not trying to replicate the same systems that we are trying to challenge and overthrow. So one word or one practice that you do before we leave.
La ilaha illallah. There is no God but God. And to him the power rests. We must turn to him. That's my one.
Thank you. Kumi, Alex.
Yeah, healing is in the movement and building community. You know, that's it.
Kumi and George, you do a lot of work too, George.
I know that it's key for me to remember. I can be overthinking, I can be anxious, I can be depressed, and then I have to remember myself and remember where I came from and remember to breathe, and then I can start healing again. I can just continue it. I can continue the journey that I was on. So
I just, since you posed a question to me, Bibi, I'll just say it ain't easy being cheesy. And I think it's been said in many different ways, but it's love. You know, it's that connection to my family, and both biological family, but I also have a lot of chosen and spiritual family. You know, and then, you know, we all have our own personal ways. Like, I don't think there's a wrong way to pray. I believe we all pray to the same kind of divine creator spirit. People have many different names and ways of expressing it, many different rituals, different languages. But when you're doing it in a sacred manner from a place of love and sincerity, then there's no wrong way. I think the real enemy is fundamentalism sometimes, you know what I mean? And that's what settler colonialism kind of changed. You know, they brought in and tried to introduce, you know what I'm saying? Because, you know, I'm not mad at Jesus, but them Christians really get on my nerves sometimes, you know what I'm saying? So, because of what they do, you know? But I think the core teachings, whether it be, you know, Islam, Judaism, Christianity, Buddhism, Taoism, my native traditions and ceremonies, you know what I'm saying? You know, the core teachings are the same. And that's one thing that I've learned from the benefit of being able to participate in like the permanent forum on indigenous issues and seeing that indigenous does not just exist in this landmass of the Americas, but we have met and built with indigenous peoples from Africa, from Asia, from all four corners of the world. You know what I'm saying? And that common spirit, those core teachings are the same. So thank you for asking me that question, Bibi. I appreciate it. An opportunity to share a little something as well.
Yes, thank you. And I want to say thank you all that despite, your hectic day, that you have shared some knowledge, some medicine, some insight, some introspection with us and with everyone listening. I think it is very important that we have these conversations in a very in a way that we tap into radical honesty, right? Even with the discrepancies of the technological issues, we are still learning and we are still connecting, which I feel it goes back to that love. It goes back to just undoing, right? The connecting back to ourselves and connecting back to one another. So on behalf of H.O.L.L.A, I want to say thank you to everyone, and please do not miss next Thursday, August 5th, same time at 2. It's going to be the last webinar, I believe, is on grassroots for the people that are doing actually grassroots work within organizations, right? Without community work and the barriers they experience doing work with grassroots organizations. So we need to learn, and we need to find new ways on how to connect back to what is essential.
Yeah, can I just say thank you to H.O.L.L.A?
Of course, Sekuo, please.
And to you, George and Bibi, for giving us this opportunity to come together and express some of our thoughts and ideas and beliefs. And it's been a pleasure. It's been an honor. Thank you, Fumi. Let me say it right now. Thank you, Kumi. And thank you, Alex, for allowing me to be with y'all and to have this here conversation. I leave y'all now with what we always come in with is peace.
Peace. Thank you so much, Sekuo. We appreciate this so much. Thanking the moderators. Y'all was amazing. Y'all was special. Just doing the thing. Appreciate everything. Thanking Lumumba bringing in the libation. Thanking George for welcoming the land acknowledgement. Everything was just amazing. So definitely appreciate that. And Sekuo, you was dropping jewels. They really try to stop your service, man. And Kumi, same here. We know you all the way in Ghana, so we appreciate you just coming through too, bringing us that Ghana energy.
It's a pleasure. Okay. I'm gone. Thank you all.
Hey, peace and taco grease, y'all. Much love.
Great night.
Okay.
All right. I think we are getting the hood.
Okay,
All right?
we are. Okay, so there was some technical difficulties, but we were able to organically flow with it, and that is,
That's right.
We did what we had to do. Appreciate y'all so much.
Yeah, Bibi and George, you guys did a great job.
Just to make a move. get it, do it. Play with my emotions like playing with my food.